One a day?
Right now, the last.
Yeah, they slow down.
Yeah, it's something we've got more.
Hmm.
All right.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know, I didn't talk to them about
Yeah,
that,
when I
but it is brought by truck.
Yeah.
I do know that they had to order so much, they had to get a 40-yard dumpster for the bags that come. Because I had to give them permission to tell them where to put that. A 40-yard dumpster is a big dumpster.
How does this work? When somebody talks, do they come blasting on the screen or what?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
That's how it works.
If I talk, I'm on full screen.
Now, we
No.
see, when we see Bill,
When you talk, there's like a little bar around you that says who's speaking to us, so we can see.
It's probably best to mute when you're not speaking, Fred, just so that it doesn't cause the camera to flip your screen like that.
Okay.
That's what I'm staying on mute till I'm spoken to.
are you only seeing one picture, Fred?
What's that?
Are you only seeing one picture?
No, I'm seeing the council chambers, and I see Phil and myself.
That's us.
You're set up correctly then. We're good to go. Good. Okay. You're up.
Meeting call to order Wednesday, August 26th. Pledge of allegiance. Please stand. Are you starting? Are you pledged?
To the flag
On the flag.
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Chairman Stefora,
Here.
Commissioner Meyer,
Here, sir.
Commissioner Wells,
Here.
Commissioner Starrett.
Here.
I will mark Commissioner Sinceri absent.
I never record verification of agenda posting.
The agenda for the Airport Advisory Commission of the City of Hollister meeting of August 26, 2020 was posted on the bulletin board at City Hall on August 14th at 10 a.m. for Government Code Section 54954.2.
Motion to approve the minutes of the advisory commission meeting of June 24th. All in favor?
Well, I'll put a motion to approve the meeting minutes.
Second. Now,
All in favor?
Aye.
Forum.
There's 6 public input.
We have one card, Ruth Erickson.
So, hi.
Who's up to the news? I think you read it.
Hi, Ruth Erickson. I unfortunately, well, fortunately, some of my comments are already on the agenda, but I didn't know if you have seen, there is a 4-page article on the airport in the new San Benito magazine. Unfortunately, many of the items in there, restaurants and things, a lot of places have closed. So when they put this together, they were all open. And if you look on page 6, you'll see that they mentioned the findings on July 4th obviously didn't happen. But I'd also, in the picture, thank you.
Report. Item A, Highway 21 taxiway safety project.
Good evening. I have good news to report. It took us 4 test sections before they finally passed, but they finally were able to pass their test section. So last night was our first night of paving. We shut down the airport about 8:30. And I believe the first asphalt hit the ground at about 11 o'clock last night. They paved till about 7 a.m. And we're due back out there shortly to do it all again tonight. It was supposed to happen last week, but due to the severe smoke, it was canceled by the contractor's health and safety department. And I didn't complain because I couldn't get out there in that smoke either. And I do see today that a whole bunch of smoke came in. So I don't know, I haven't gotten any word yet that paving is going to be delayed, but it could. I'm not really pushing it. I think safety of the workforce is much more important than getting a new piece of asphalt that we waited for 25 years to have. So I think we can wait another couple days without it really killing us either way. So the project is moving along slowly, but due to COVID-19 and the smoke, they did have a issue with COVID-19 among their workforce too that also delayed things. So it will get done. You have my word that it will get done, and when it's done, it'll be great. It just taken a little longer than it was supposed to, and our decision was to work with the contractor rather than to sit there and growl at them and say, you got to go faster with quite literally there's nothing they can do. So
Just my own curiosity, when they fail a test, do they point out and be compacting back in, or they have to make that work?
So it is at our discretion on whether the asphalt shall remain or it shall be removed.
This wasn't actually subgrade.
This was not subgrade. All their subgrade has passed. This was actual asphalt work. We actually decided to allow them to keep it there because it failed for the runway standard. But this is such a thick section. There's actually supposed to be a pass of normal Caltrans asphalt, the first pass, as a base course. And all the test sections did pass for the test course standards. Because the runway oil is a higher quality oil and it's a better product, we chose to allow that to remain and not take it out and have them put the Caltrans mix in. So we were able to get the higher quality product and only pay the Caltrans price, which was lower. So by working with them, it didn't cost them as much money and it saved us some money. As a result of those savings, it looks like we're going to be able to have enough money to pay the strip from the back gate out to Men's Hangar and take care of a lot of those bad spots in the asphalt over there. Not all of them, but a lot of them.
Plus our run up there.
Yeah.
Now, was that the same issue that Chapin had, or were they the subgrade?
Chapin's issue was in the runway paving itself. And it was Chapin's issues were thickness and compaction. Their failures were compaction and mix. So on a couple of the mixes, they didn't quite have enough sand or rock to oil ratio.
I know they did fairly well with that problem.
So if I have a question. The section that is going to be over, this is the extra you were mentioning is by where the fire trucks caused the damage on the other side of the field, correct?
Correct.
Is there a cost recovery if we're using some of the dollars that we're using for this project on that, or are we going to be able to charge that still back to the fire department for other projects, or how does that work?
I worked really hard to make that a reality, but I was told by the city manager there is no money.
And I looked at the asphalt there, I mean, it's, you know.
Oh, it was a very
didn't have
bad
a
design,
chance. It had a chance.
horrible
Yeah,
design.
so it was not, I don't see it being the fire department's issue. In fact, I think there.
Yeah, they were a contributing factor just because of the amount of traffic and the weight, but
Yeah.
the true failure was when it was initially built. There was no base, no subgrade work at all done on that. And there was an initial layer of 2 inches of asphalt. And then at some point before I arrived, they put another 2 inches of asphalt on top of it. And they did not use any tack oil, so it didn't even become a homogeneous mixture of 2 layers. There's quite literally 2 separate layers of 2-inch asphalt moving in different directions as the ground swells. Yeah, right, never had a change.
All right, you ready to move to item B, the budget?
So our budget was passed by the city council late June with no changes than it was presented to you. So we're good to go.
Item C, open house.
So we still have not held any open houses since we terminated them post-February due to COVID. We are continuing to operate an historic aircraft display day in place of that, but there is no public notification, and we're not inviting the public to come out for the open house until we get a notification from the airport or in the city that COVID measures are such that we can have a public event again. So I guess we'll table this until that restarts again.
I do know that the state's issuing new guidance this week, but I haven't seen it yet, and I'll need time to digest it. So maybe by the next meeting, I'll be able to give you a few more answers on where we are with it.
That would be great.
Item D is in David, vacant commissioner spots.
So we currently have 2 vacant commissioner spots, District 3 and District 4. We're attempting, I believe the city clerk is currently accepting applications. And the intent is to fill 1 slot immediately, which would be the District 3 slot. Unfortunately, the District 4 council person was Marty Richmond, who passed away. So there's really nobody there to appoint the District 4 person until after the election. So our intention is to collect applications now, and then we will hold the remaining applications after the District 3 position gets filled for the District 4 victorious candidate who gets seated on the first meeting in December to review. And if they like somebody, they can go ahead and appoint them at that time, or they can go ahead and decide that they want to go back out for another round of applications.
Thank you. Item number E, hangar rooms.
So I'm not entirely sure what the plan is on this. I need to caution all of you because I was involved in other things. I did not have time to have a conversation with the city attorney about your legal status and where the line is on what you can discuss, because every one of you are conflicted on airport rents because you all are tenants. So you have a financial benefit to this discussion if something comes out of it that benefits you. So you got to be, I think we could talk at the 50,000 foot level. We can't take any action, I guarantee you that. And then I need to talk to the city attorney and see what his comfort is. You are in an advisory position, so that may grant you additional latitudes than you would have if you were, say, a member of the city council. but you all do have a financial conflict on this item.
I think as long as we're doing this in a public forum, none of these conversations are being done in private, and they're on the record as far as that goes. I think, and we've established that everybody has a responsibility, but we still have a fiduciary responsibility as members of the council to ask questions on behalf of the populace at the airport. And I think, you know, I know that there's been a number of times we've talked about CPI, and I think what we're trying to do is just come up with a comfort or a justification for the existing pricing structure as it is. And I think that just benefits all of the tenants. It's not specific to anyone here. Nobody's asking for a specific lenience on rent, but I think we do want to know what latitude there is as far as the rent calculations when we look at comparisons to some of the other facilities in the area.
So how do we want to do this? Do you want to ask questions and I'll answer them, or?
Can I open just a couple of comments?
Absolutely.
It always seemed to me that every time we look at the airport rents, that they would not comparing apple to apple type situations, right? For example, a house in Morgan Hill costs more than a house in Gilroy. A house in Gilroy costs more than a house. So the further you get away from the Bay Area, where the direction you go, prices come down. And so a lot of us that friends overseas, we look at these guys, we got pretty nice names, we're paying $200 a month. Right? So I talked to the airport manager, I guess the new manager there, and kind of a conflict of interest. And he says, you know, I have an airplane, I'm paying a rent. I don't want to see my rent go up, but I got to raise rents, right? So he's looking, and he wants to look at Hollister because he likes our rent structure versus if he goes and looks at Watsonville or go to King City, Casa Road. So he's wanting to go north for his argument to raise rents. And so what I did, I'm just kind of comparing, and so the numbers I have here, I got from the airport managers, I can document them, stuff like that tonight and into that detail. So just comparing Salinas with our east side neighbors, they're 170, 200. Watsonville, they're like 266. And I picked Livermore because it's kind of like we are, it's outlined in the Bay Area. It's not a real view, and we're not San Martin. And they're 277, and then my place I spent a lot of time, and I actually have a flight down there, Napa. There's not a single aircraft on the ramp. Same thing with Slates, hardly any airplane on the ramp. Everybody's in hangars. So Napa, you go out there and that airport is filled with G5s, citations, King Airs, and Class, you name it. And they're 263. And I think they're same thing. They're an outline out of the Bay Area. At least I think that's what all these airports have in common. So I'm looking at what we're paying is, I think, a lot higher than what comparable rent should be. And then we have that tax levy at the end of the year. Personal property tax is the report on the hangar itself. And I don't see anybody else doing it. So those are the issues I'm looking at. Obviously, you can look at it from what the market will bear, and the market's bearing it. So if you look at who's at the airport, you know, it's Hollister people compared to how many are out of town people, you know, because they're looking at rents from the higher areas, so they come down here for that exact reason. It's a little bit more affordable, or it's available, you know, take a pick. So we had the same problem when they built the new hangars out there. Their programs wanted to provide a certain rent level that was higher than the old hangar, and he couldn't rent. So what he wound up doing is he wound up bringing the lower rents east side up and the west side down, and then we started there and moved on up. So I think there is a thing in the federal aviation, in regards to airports, it says, you know, you will not price things out of line for people that are consumers at the airport. You know, where you can't just arbitrarily raise rent to a certain level because you can't. We are trapped the body. So I mean, that's my point on it, and my recommendation is roll the rest back, take away a refund.
Can't do that.
Maybe we can do
Without
some-
talking to the city
maybe we can maybe back down a little bit.
So let me talk about a few things. So the possessory interest tax is a county tax. We have nothing to do with that. So that's levied by San Benito County.
It's a property tax.
Levied by San Benito County, not the city of Hollister. And it is their interpretation of the law that if you use a government facility, you need to pay. Normally, a government-owned facility is exempt from property taxes. But if a private entity is leasing that public facility, this is how it was explained to me, they are receiving a benefit of that, and as such, they need to pay the taxes on it as if it was a private piece of property. So any more in-depth discussions, I have to refer you over to the assessor's office because I am not a tax assessor and I don't get that. The rents of the T hangars have never been adjusted in the entire 12 years I've been at the airport other than CPI. So those rents were set prior to me. I do not know how that figure was arrived at. I can tell you that it is based on a square footage, and all the hangars, there are 3 different types of hangars there, and we refer to them as the new hangars, which are 20 years old on the west side of the airport. The Keenan hangars, which there's kind of Danny Martin and a couple rows over there. All those hangars will start with a K. And then we refer to the old hangars, which I think were the first group of hangars that were built in the 70s. Correct? 55? Oh, 55. Oops, sorry, got fired. We found plans for 74, so we thought it was 74. So the square footage charge on each of those T hangars is the same. Those T hangars have different square footages, so there's a little bit of variance
Right.
in the rents themselves. That was set prior to my arrival. Luckily, the finances of the airport have been so that we have not had to raise those in 12 years. I do not foresee needing to raise those anytime soon. But as far as comparing things, I want you to be careful about your comparisons. Hollister is not Watsonville. If you want to, we have different weather than Watsonville.
San Luis, not Santa Cruz.
Correct. And we have different facilities than Watsonville. I think a better look at the prices we charge is, what is our vacancy rate? What is our waiting list look like? We're full, folks. We've always been full. We got a little close during the crash where a hangar would be open maybe for a month. But we are now back to about a 12-person waiting list on every hangar. And those are real people that want hangars. So I think our charge is probably where it should be. I do know a little bit about Salinas, and I know that they have some real strange ways that the rents were determined over there over the years. And I think it was whatever it needed to be charged when it was built at that time. And then I don't think it really was adjusted after that fact, which is, I think, what he's trying to take care of, to clean that all up. I think they have like 15 different rates for different hangars over there. It's kind of crazy.
Different door heights.
So what the CPI does is it protects our value of the money. And I will argue that CPI is hugely important for the airport. I know it's a tough pill to swallow, but it does protect that dollar amount. And I would argue that CPI increases have preserved the hangar rents where they are, where we have not had to adjust the T hangar rents over the years. I can tell you that the large hangar rents have adjusted over the years because of market conditions, and they are much higher. But we've always managed not to need to touch the T hangar rents. And then the other thing I would ask you to look at is the budget. We do not generate a huge surplus each year with our budget. We generate a bit of a surplus.
You know, what our gross income is now.
Our gross income is about 1 to 1.1 million. And our expenses are between 900 and 950. So we generate a little bit of surplus, and I do that intentionally because I was able to get the city council to set up 4 savings accounts for the airport. There's a savings account that each year we transfer twice the minimum mandatory for our federal grant into. So we qualify for a $150,000 federal grant every year automatically. But to receive that grant, we need to have $15,000 matching fund each year. So I always budget for $30,000 to go into that matching fund account. So we always have our money for our mandatory grant. There's a fund for replacement of capital equipment, trucks, tractors. Those are all expensive things. Luckily, I've managed to do a little wheel and deal in between departments, and we don't have it. We probably will go a long time before we need to replace the tractor. That tractor is a $250,000 piece of equipment. Before we had that tractor, quite literally, when spring, it started raining long enough for the ground to harden up, I would say bye to the maintenance person, and they would be on a riding lawnmower for the entire summer. And I would not see them again. So it started raining, and the place never kept up being mowed. So the tractor's really been able to allow us to increase the maintenance level at the airport. There's a fund for building repair, roofs, major equipment, building repairs. A little bit of money gets put in there each year and reserved, protected, so that we conduct those repairs. And then the final one is new buildings. So we have some money eventually to be able to go out and buy a new hangar and put up a row of hangars or do that sort of thing. The unfortunate thing was, as a result of the federal regulations on grants and the Chafin situation, that wiped all that out. So we're back at 0. Actually, we're a little under 0, but we're battling our way up. So by the end of this year, we'll be back at 0. And then we'll start putting the money there. So I really don't think we have a huge surplus of rent cushion to roll anything back without starting to have to look at cutting back on the services we're able to provide and the maintenance level we're able to provide out there.
I have a question.
Yes.
One of the things that you had mentioned in the previous meeting when it came to the budget, and specifically when this topic has come up, was around the reimbursement for the legal fees associated with the lawsuit. I guess I think we should put this on the agenda probably for another time, but I think we'd like to understand also why we're out of pocket if we were the winners in that lawsuit, why we didn't get that money repaid as a result of the lawsuit.
Well, there were no winners in that situation. I agree with you. We can agendize it for a future meeting. I just spoke to the FAA about this 2 weeks ago, and they are not going to reimburse the legal fees. According to them, federal law prevents us from, it requires us to expend it, but they are prohibited from reimbursing.
So the money's gone.
The money's gone.
Okay.
there any more comments on the hangar rentals?
Yeah, how do you recommend that we reach the hangar rent issue in any depth from this point on?
Explain more about what you wish
Well,
to do.
today's just, discussion, but it
Yes.
feels like if we want to take it to the next level of action, see if the rent reduction is reasonable and in line, how would we approach that?
So I need to talk to city attorney and find out where the line is, on what you're allowed to do. And then I would need a specific list of what you wish to consider to make that decision, so that I can produce the data.
So you're going to talk to the attorney.
I think at that point I would.
Can anybody hear me?
Yes, Chris?
Yes.
Oh, am I on the air now?
You
Yes.
are.
I'm having trouble with unmuting. Can you hear me now?
Good area.
We hear you.
Yeah, the one problem that I have with the CPI versus the hangar rents is every year the hangar rents, the percentage of increase is it's compounded, which makes the rent adjustments each year go up more and more. And I don't know if that's a legal way to do it. Maybe the CPI should be based on a baseline or something. Any comment on that?
So you're correct on that. So you look at compound interest for your adding the CPI each time to not argument up.
I can discuss that with the finance director.
I'm trouble having hearing you when you talk. Or anybody in the conference room is kind of echoes.
I can discuss that with the finance director.
Okay.
All right, next item, F is in Frank, old structure building.
So we have a lot of old structures out there at the airport. Some of them are in use, some of those are effectively condemned for many reasons. So once again, I need a little more specific so I can answer and give you the information you're looking for.
Well, I know if that was my property, I had these old buildings on it, city would be after me to get them removed. But they're not historical, they're just bad old barracks, stuff like that. I just thought it would, some point, obviously, somebody would be building them, but it's just, why not get rid of it?
So the building, the main building next to the restaurant, the biggest eyesore of the bunch, is absolutely full. And I do mean full of asbestos
Oh, yeah.
and lead paint. The cost of abatement on that will be at least $1 million, if not several millions of dollars to clean that up. The airport, quite frankly, does not have money to do that.
Is that a,
The FAA will not fund that as part of the AIP, and the military will not fund that as any. I'm hoping for a brown field program from the military, but I think we missed all that. All that stuff happened in the 70s and 80s.
in the middle of the night?
I can't tell you the fire department. I've had conversations with them about how structured defense instead of active firefighting on it. But anyway, quite frankly, we literally cannot afford to tear it down.
Yeah, I can't let them do it.
I mean, that building had the steam plant for the entire base in it, and you can imagine the amount of asbestos in that section alone. See, I'm getting all choked up thinking about going into that room again.
What they do over there for order, they pay the million bucks a million.
I do believe that as part of the closure negotiation, the military was required to pay the fees to do that. And I think that not all of them are down yet. And how many years has it been since it's closed? So, yeah, they do pay those fees to do that. I can tell you that the lead paint abatement on the building that I'm in was $250,000, and that was just the exterior of the building.
I can tell you a story. These guys are all masked up, working like crazy, break for lunch, take the mask off, and get the building for lunch.
Yeah.
Is there any hazard to having those buildings there? I mean, they're containing this.
So the outside has been painted with latex paint. Obviously, it's chipping off in places. If somebody was over there eating the paint, it'd be an issue. I mean, physically picking paint off the building and eating it. And then the staff are the only people that access that building. And they have to be trained and appropriate PPE to access it.
But where's that Hollister arsonist?
I think they arrested.
Again,
All right,
I can tell you that the asbestos and lead paint cleanup on building 25 was $1,500 after it burned.
yeah.
And building 25 was about that big, wasn't it?
So all paving's gonna be done shortly.
I'm sorry.
All paving's gonna be done shortly.
All the paving should be done. Well, there's 4 more days of paving, so whether they happen this week or there's a total of 4 days of paving.
all right, next item G, EDC Airport Committee.
So the Economic Development Corporation has formed a airport committee. I'm a member of it. Councilperson Lenore is a member of it, and there's a lot of business leaders in the community that are also members of it. There's a representative from Granite Rock, etc. We've met. They've established a work plan to work through promoting the airport. Advertising is a big component of that plan. I will be getting into that here in the coming months. Another thing that is a priority, and it's always been a priority for me, and it's a priority for them, is the classification of our airport. I don't know if I've gone over this with folks in the past. Do you all realize we're a local airport in the eyes of the FAA? Or is this news to you? Versus a regional? Salinas and Watsonville are regional airports. You know this. And I've talked about why we're only a local.
I heard it.
Okay, so the FAA established a classification of the general aviation airports in the NIPIAS plan, which is the National Airport Civil Defense Plan, which is the plan that gives us the federal dollars through the grants. And they classified airports into 4 categories. Reliever, which is your major GA who's helping out doing commercial traffic. So Monterey is a reliever because it relieves traffic from San Jose. There's regional, which is your big airport that's got over 100 based aircraft and some other parameters, which we'll get into in a second. Salinas, Watsonville, Reed Hillview, they're all regional airports. And then there's local airports, which have to have at least 10 based aircraft. And that's pretty much the only qualifier you need. And then there's, after all that, they decided that they still had to create a new classification that was unclassifiable. So there was about 250 airports in the system that were unclassifiable. So when they did this, they promised that funding would never be attached to this. Well, about 4 years ago, they went through and defunded all the unclassifiable airports. So they no longer qualify for federal grants, which put us at the bottom of the pile, which concerns me greatly because I know there's constant pressure from the major airports to eliminate all federal funding to GA airports and to grab that money for your SFOs, your Oaklands, and your San Jose. That happens on a regular basis. And there's a lot of politics involved with certain committees where a lot of air transport board members get placed on these committees and not much representation for GA. So this is a very large concern. So I couldn't figure out why we were just a local airport because we have hundreds of based aircraft. We're extremely busy and we have major facilities, you know, 1.5 mile runway, etc. So did some reading, research, and they actually tell you how they figured out how they classified. They looked at an airport in Florida, and they looked at some on the East Coast, and they looked at some in the Midwest. And based on like 6 different airports, they came up with a classification system to determine who's which. They didn't look at any airports in California. And one of the parameters is there has to be 1,000 IFR flights a year, flight plans filed a year out of that airport. Well, the problem that I see is that we're being penalized for having great weather. It's easy for Watsonville to get 1,000 IFR flights a year. And if you want to fly there, actually, if you want to drive your hangar, oftentimes you need to file an IFR flight. They're so soft in. We only have 3 IFR days a year at Hollister. So, well, Dean did run the numbers. I trusted him. So I went ahead and I've been trying to get the FAA to recognize the fact that we're being penalized for having good weather. Our number is 600, by the way. We had 600 IFR flights. And so I was trying to get them to have some sort of an appeal process. And they've been resisting. So that's one of the priorities of this, get us reclassified to a regional airport. I was finally able to make contact with somebody at headquarters very recently and explain to them my situation. And I also explained to them, I'm not trying to get you to just reclassify Hollister. I'm trying to make this a fair process where we can ask you and give you some parameters and be reclassified since your formula has an issue with it. And their response was, we don't have any way of counting VFR flights, and that's what we're doing because it's too hard. So I'm currently working with the county RMI director who used to be the airport manager at Stockton Airport. See if he has any ideas on where to go from here, but it's possible that we may go through at this point because I'm sorry, Hollister is not a local airport or a regional airport. Talk to the 9 counties that have been burning for the last 8 days that we've been servicing. The 500 flights, the 600,000 gallons of retardant that we spread over those 9 counties.
Now we're back to my hangar man breaking into. We charge more than the regional.
Well, if you want to pay the rent and go sit in the fog over there, it's good for the skin.
I had so many beach houses over there.
Item number 8, old business.
None.
New business.
None.
Oh, number 10, when you get there, hang on. Go ahead.
Number 10, items for next agenda.
Somehow we left off the update on traffic pattern altitude change. I don't know. I'm just curious, did we ever get that resolved? And we can put it back on the list for next time, I guess.
It's not an FAA priority.
Can we do the, little more budget discussion next meeting?
And anything specific or?
Add general education on my part, but I got some items that, more detail on it. So I can, an example might be, operating stuff like that. And what makes it up those rates? I can send you this.
Tools, gloves, PPE, toilet paper, towels.
Okay, again. We're not gonna do that.
Do you know how expensive toilet paper got there for a while?
Yeah,
Proud to say the airport never ran out.
yeah. Well, if we put our next agenda, I'll just kind of take this one.
Well, you can send me an email at a time and that's,
All right.
I can show up there with specifics.
Appreciate that.
And can we also add to the list? I'd like to get a rundown on what the other hangar construction project seems to have stopped 6 months ago. I'm curious, there's a fence that's still up on the ramp, and I'm just wondering when will that be resolved? And I'd like if we could get an update on that project.
Okay.
And then items A through E would, I assume, stay on the next agenda.
Okay.
Number 11, action item.
None.
All right. Next meeting is scheduled for September 23rd.
That is correct.
The following is October 28th.
Maybe. The calendar's not flipped.
Okay.
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second that.
All in favor?
I
Aye.
Nay?
praise for the.
Meeting adjourned.
Bye all.
Better turn my speaker up. It's hard to do with the man.
Great job, Renee. You can do it. You can stay there and do it next time too.
Okay. We'll see how it goes.
All right. Take care, everybody.
Thank you guys, you too.
Thank you.
Hey.
Because they can't get into the.